Hello, I'm Tom from GAMINGbible and I'm here with Ewan and we are chatting about Star Wars Squadrons, which you have played.
Yes, I have played it. I've played quite a bit of it now. I played a little bit of the single player and I played 2 of the game's multiplayer modes.
Hands-on, how long is that?
So all told, I think I got about 3 hours of hands-on time with it. There's the half-hour prologue and then sort of about an hour-ish with each of the 2 modes, just to really get to grips with how it all works.
Oh nice, so what are those 2 modes?
The first was called Dogfight, which is pretty much kind of your standard sort of team deathmatch, but it's set in space. You know, you jump behind the cockpit of either an Imperial ship or a Rebel Alliance ship.
Okay.
And so for my playthrough, I unfortunately had to be in a TIE fighter as part of the Empire. It's your standard sort of deathmatch. You're flying through space, 2 teams of 5, and you just have to blow each other out of the sky.
Oh nice, so I'm going to say it's kind of similar to Battlefront 2, but also completely dissimilar because you're entirely in the cockpit. How does that control?
It's kind of like the Battlefront 2 space battles, but at the same time, it's nothing like them.
I can imagine.
It feels like a classic flight sim, you know, like Ace Combat.
Yeah.
It's a proper classic sort of first person behind the cockpit. You're just sort of fiddling with the instruments in this cockpit and doing battle, and it feels so amazingly authentic.
I mean, what's the learning curve on that? Because obviously, watching Star Wars and the movies and stuff, you kind of get an idea of what these things are. Like, you can always see where Luke's about to fire into the hole on the Death Star. You can kind of see how he's lining that kind of up. How does that translate to a player experience?
It's not that hard to get hold of the basics. Flying is really easy. It's super responsive. The real sort of meat of the gameplay comes in these moment-to-moment decisions where just by tapping the D-pad you can divert power to either your engines, your shields, or your lasers. So essentially you can take away all the power from your engines, for example, and just have like super powerful lasers at the cost of your maneuverability.
Oh wow.
So if you just want to like go head to head with someone, get them done quickly, but then at the same time if you need to get away quickly, if a missile's coming, you switch, put all the energy into your engines and you can zip away.
I mean, how fast is that switch? Is that a slow transition?
It's completely responsive. It's you flick a switch and then it's just like bloop.
You've explained the dogfights to an extent, but what's fleets?
Yes, so fleets essentially is this sort of slightly larger scale mode. They last longer than dogfights. They're more team-based, more objective-based. So instead of just, 5 ships on each side just blowing the cack out of each other, there's a little more thought to it. You're essentially tasked with pushing the enemy back, with your end goal being to destroy their sort of larger vessel. So in the case of the Empire, it's a Star Destroyer. But to do that, you sort of have to go in phases. So you start off sort of taking on standard starfighters, which are AI ships and obviously player-controlled ships. And the more of those you take out, you get sort of morale.
Okay.
And the more morale you get, all your AI ships then go towards the larger ship for a full-scale attack.
So they fly now?
Yeah. Oh yeah, they fly now. You son of a gun. But you do that, and you sort of eventually just all get to go straight at the Star Destroyer, at which point the other players will be tasked with sort of falling back to their territory and defending it. But it takes a while to blow the Star Destroyer up, so in the time that you're doing like bombing runs of that Star Destroyer, the enemy team could once again push back and get it. So it goes sort of back and forth. It's constantly trying to push forward and stop them from pushing forward and having to switch from the defensive to the offensive. And I think a standard game of that, when we were all playing, takes like 20 to 30 minutes. But it's great because it's constantly changing. You're having to constantly change up your strategy.
So the modes you're explaining there, they are just the multiplayer modes that you've played with people. What's the narrative side like?
So the single player story, I only got to play a little bit of the prologue, but it's basically the meat of the story is set after Return of the Jedi. You know, those sort of final desperate battles between the Empire and the Rebels. You know, basically just finishing the Empire off, that sort of period.
I'm presuming, so is this kind of like before the Battle of Jakku and the end of...
Before that, yeah. So the prologue starts a little bit before that even. The prologue starts just after the Death Star's blown up Alderaan.
Okay, so full on A New Hope situation there then.
Yeah, so full on, and the Empire is tracking down a couple of refugee ships that escaped from Alderaan.
Okay.
And you've got this Imperial officer who, understandably, isn't entirely jazzed about the idea of blowing up a refugee ship.
Well, that's good, there's morals.
Well, exactly, yeah. It's you know, I always like the idea that not every single person who works for the Empire isn't out and out evil bastard. Cause...
You tell that to Finn, killing all them other stormtroopers. One last thing that you mentioned in our chat, in our private work chat, is flying TIE fight, flying the X-Wing and hearing John Williams score.
Oh man, yeah. So that was in the prologue. You start off with the Imperial officers that I just mentioned, and then you cut to the Rebels, and you fly out, and John Williams' Binary Sunset starts playing, and oh man, I honestly welled up because I've been feeling a little Star Wars fatigued for a while.
Yeah.
I feel like there's just been almost too much of it, and I've not liked all of it. But that moment, just sort of behind the cockpit of an X-Wing in a game that looks utterly gorgeous, it just felt authentic. It felt like the Star Wars game I've been waiting for.
That's amazing to hear. Like, I can't really add on to that because for you say you're not really a flight sim kind of guy. I'm not really a flight sim kind of guy, and this game hasn't really done it for me in that way because it is a flight sim. The authenticity of it has interested me. But the actual gameplay side I've kind of struggled with. But the fact that you're enjoying it is kind of giving me hope.
Absolutely, a new hope, would you say?
A new hope, yeah. I mean, some might say, I fly now.
But this is the thing, and I think this is important for people who might not be that enamoured by the idea of it being a flight sim should take into account, is that just the way the game makes you feel, and again this is based on my early impressions, but the way the game makes you feel I think is worth it alone, because it makes you feel like you're in those fights. And even when you're playing really badly, and believe me, I was one of the worst people on my team, I was still having a great time, man. Just flying around and supporting your team. If you're not like the sharpest shooter or the best flyer, there's still value to having you in the squad. There will still be a role for you. And, you know, I was playing this with complete strangers, with no voice chat, and there is voice chat, but there is an option to do that, and that would be great with friends. But you know, no voice chat, no text chat when I was playing the preview, and you know, we still managed to communicate everything because there's a great little ping system.
Oh, nice.
You could just you just tap a button and it's I'm going for that ship, or oh, this ship's on my tail, can someone help me out? And that just makes it really easy to play. The last thing I will mention is, I know some people get a little bit worried because EA, you know, or what they're gonna do, how they're gonna fiddle with this launch. The creative leads did mention several times, he wanted to make this very clear, that this is a standalone game.
That's good.
There's loads of ways to customise your pilot and your ship. That is all earned entirely through gameplay. I think he said something along the lines of, you cannot buy those things even if you want to.
Brilliant.
Like, you earn it through gameplay. There's no plans for single player DLC anywhere down the line either. That's not to say it won't ever come, single player DLC and stuff like that.
Cool. So it sounds like Squadrons is looking pretty shit hot.
I would say it's looking pretty fly.
Oh. All right. Thanks, Ewan. Thanks for that noise, and thanks for telling us about Star Wars Squadrons. What's the release and consoles and such?
Star Wars Squadrons will be coming out on the 2nd of October this year, and that'll be for PS4, Xbox One, and PC. And you will later be able to play it on PS5 and Xbox Series X.
Cool. Oh, well, it's going to fight against Crash Bandicoot 4 because that's the same release date.
Two very different games, but I mean, I'm going to play them both.
Yeah, me too. Anyway, cheers, Ewan. Have a
Thank you
nice
very much,
day.
Tom.
And everyone
Bye.
who's watching, give us a subscribe.